Human trafficking is an invisible crime. We don't see it. And victims of human trafficking often don't report it. My name is Grappo. I'm a retired diplomat in the United States. I've been on the board of directors of the Laboratory of Combat Human Trafficking for 8 years, and I'm very happy to be here today. My first exposure to human rights was actually my very first assignment as a junior diplomat. I was assigned to the U.S. Embassy in Managua, Nicaragua. I was certainly aware that human rights was a very serious problem in Nicaragua at the time. This was during a very contentious time in the relationship between the government of the United States and the then government of Nicaragua. I traveled throughout the country. I interviewed numerous victims of human rights violations, some of them quite personal in terms of violence committed against them. That was a very formative experience. It was the first assignment in my career, and it was something that stuck with me throughout my career, rising all the way up to becoming a U.S. ambassador. My first exposure to human trafficking was as an American diplomat working overseas as part of the embassy's human rights portfolio. By the time I was a mid-level officer in the State Department and maybe somewhat more senior, I was hearing it more often. But I don't recall it ever being a part of the foreign policy of the United States government until after 2000, because the first anti-human traffic law passed by the United States was in 2000. And it wasn't very long after that President George Bush made this a major issue. He was going to integrate combating human trafficking into U.S. foreign policy. My office was the principal office responsible for combating terrorism in the Middle East, and we were assigned this additional responsibility, that is, to reach out to governments of the Middle East and begin to encourage them to take action to fight human trafficking, in particular passing the necessary legislation, enforcing laws, making arrests, and also equally important, looking after the survivors of human trafficking. I saw this as the worst form of depriving a human being of their freedom, of their dignity, and of their future. So when I eventually retired from the Department of State at the end of 2011, this was an issue that I felt I understood, certainly from an international perspective, and that I might have an interest in pursuing when I returned to this country. And so when I did retire, and my wife and I settled here in Colorado, I made some efforts to see what I might be able to do, and fortunately, I was able to identify a terrific organization that seemed to have a very professional, responsible, and conscientious approach to combating human trafficking, and that was the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking. And what really drew me to LCHT was that this is a fact-based organization, that we don't take action without understanding the basis for that action. This crime of human trafficking is not well understood. It's an invisible crime. It's a crime in which victims don't come forward. Someone steals your car, you report it. You're a victim of an assault, you report it. Victims of human trafficking very often don't know that they are a victim of human trafficking. They themselves, as victims, may not understand the concept of human trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking. And for most of the public, I've discovered, there's a naivete about the crime of human trafficking and how it occurs. In fact, I tell my friends and colleagues that every day in their lives, they are exposed either directly or indirectly to this crime of human trafficking. And how do you make people aware? Is educating people which I'm proud to say LCHT does on a very regular basis, very professionally and competently, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's lawyers, whether it's healthcare workers, whether it's students or educators. Amplify to me is getting a better understanding of this problem so we can better address it, eliminate it. Ultimately, as we say in our mission, we want to end human trafficking.